Alright, here we have Carlotta. Now right off the bat, you can see her color scheme features quite a lot of whites, a lot of magentas, blues, and blacks, but generally, the gems she has all over her body are blue like the majority of her eyes. Starting from the front, you do have her very high set bangs, her crystal-like eyes, the lots and lots of ribbons and bows she has everywhere, the front of her dress, the back of her jacket, as well as high over-the-knee boots that are slid in the middle, and very high heels. Moving to one side, you can see how long her hair is, that she actually has another ponytail on top, which we'll be looking at later, the sleeves of her jacket, which she isn't filling out, the back of her jacket, again the very big size of her heels, as well as the ahoge, which I feel you can see better here because it is quite square in my opinion. Moving on to the back, you can see that it is majorly magenta, symbolizing the shape of a bow mostly, with a bow in her hair, bows on the back of her jacket, little flowers in the color of her bows on the sleeves, as well as bows on the shoes. In addition to that, you can also see her tassel mark. And onto the last side, the only thing that's different from side 1 is her sleeves featuring a lot of gems as well as being very laced up. Starting from the top, like I've said, her bangs are actually set quite high. I was kind of surprised by this because usually the models have lower bangs with it covering the forehead, but I think this is kind of nice due to the headband. I feel like if the bangs were further down, the headband would look kind of weird. A lot of the Renacita characters actually have different colored makeup this time. Carlotta for one has a little bit of fuchsia eyeshadow as well as default blush. Her eyes are probably the most captivating thing about her design. The eye is made up of multiple layers of magenta, pink, green, blue, dark blue, and generally turquoise, but looking at it from far away, it kind of just looks like blue with pink around it. It gives the illusion of being one iris, but when you look at it closer, you can see all of these different layers. Personally though, I think even though it's this layered, it's supposed to resemble an opal, which she does call herself in the story as a sort of codename. As I've mentioned before, her ahoge is quite square. I think other characters have it more of a round swing or just a tiny one, but hers is kind of something in between that. On top of her head, she does have this really cute little headband, which doesn't have too much detail, but I don't think it needs to. I feel like the flowers colored in the same color as some of her bows are enough. Said headband is actually stuck behind her ear, which does feature little earrings. The earrings themselves do feature this little square stud and are connected via a little black string to a kind of marble looking thing. I'm not a gem expert. I don't know of any gemstones that are this clear. Maybe you know, because at this point we'll definitely need a gem counter. The side pieces under her bangs are quite long, with half of them being swept back into a bow. The bow is quite big and is kind of giving rich girl, but I think this is intentional as she is that elegant rich girl. Besides the golden stripes, the black center, and the little triangles at the end of them, something I've noticed is that KuroGames has been starting to play around with textures, giving this bow a bit more of an authentic feel rather than just looking plastic. Looking at the back of her, something that players have been kind of debating over is that the side pieces she has swept back here are actually much longer than the ones at the front, building another ponytail. I think this was visible in some pieces but was kind of harder to see on others, so that players were kind of divided if it was really there or not. I myself had a couple of friends confused over this. Moving further down, we do have her collar different from Zinso ones. If you remember, Zinso collars are kind of high, but are connected to the eventual outfit. This one does give more of a jeans or jacket collar. If you look closely, the front of her dress is actually partially held up by this, being secured via a golden choker and connected down via a chain and a little bow. And this bow does have our third gem, so add that to the counter. Before we go further down, starting with one arm, the arm itself, or well, the top of the jacket, is quite open, giving us a lot of armpit. With the jacket itself not really being connected to it other than this little strap. Or you can say that the jacket doesn't really exist backwise. The upper part of the sleeve is still encasing the arm though. The shoulders of the jacket do kind of look like they have shoulder pads in them, and they also feature little star-like gems. That said, I don't really want to count these due to a reason I will state later. Continuing down the sleeve, we do have a little cute bow again, lots of ruffles that go back into the sleeve, as well as the inside of the sleeve being lined with this gem diamond-like pattern, which we will see again later. The rest of the sleeve has similar golden stripes with more of these flower-like bows. The back of the sleeve has much of the same, with little diamond-like shapes, more stripes, little bow-like flowers, and more ruffle, which for a change is magenta but blue. Moving down her arm, we do have a very plain glove. The glove itself really has not much pattern, but to make up for that, the other glove we will look at in a second has more. That said, the glove has a little triangle hole, a kind of patch on it which probably says Montelli family or something, as well as a little lace-like trim at the start of it. The other arm is much of the same sleeve-wise, but her glove is actually much more intricate. Starting with a bow here, it laces all the way down to her glove. In the middle of this lacing, she wears something of which I'm not quite sure what it is. Looking at the top of it, it kind of just looks like a little ruffled wristband, but from the bottom, it gives me more of a hair tie feel, so maybe this is just a second hair tie she keeps around. Wristband or not, it doesn't stop her from decking this out with diamonds, putting the total of her counter to 7. The glove itself is separated into 2 parts, with the lacing ending at the middlemost diamond, splitting into triangle-like shapes and only being connected at the middle here and through this. Moving back to the front, we do have the first half of her dress. The dress itself is white, with lots of magenta detailing on top. In the middle of it, we have another black-like diamond as we saw on the jacket, and while she could have just slapped a diamond in the middle, this thing actually has more of a root or plant-like pattern. Going from this thing and to the jacket, we have rib-like ribbons, kind of building a very loose corset. The rest of the white dress isn't too interesting and only features white little flowers, as well as a gold-looking line that goes across the side. You might have noticed that the white part of her dress is kind of a lie. She isn't really wearing a dress, as, spoiler, it is cut off at the back. Before we move on to that though, and the very nonsensical back, we have this little stripe moving up which connects to the ribcage-like cloth, but actually moving to the back, it isn't really connected to anything. Now you could argue it's sewn down to this black part, but in actuality it is just kind of floating above it. Now the back starts again with the cut off parts of her jacket as well as these little diamond shapes again. These little cut off parts are connected to the collar via a little strap, which itself is connected to the lower part of the jacket via this weird looking black thing. I don't really get what this is supposed to be, why there is an arrow on it. Maybe this thing needs instructions on how to take it off and it's saying to clip it off here. Regardless, the strap has another bow on it with a little dangly thing featuring the 8th and 9th gem today. Moving down from this black part, it is connected via little loose strands, as well as these more secure ones to the end part of the jacket. The end part of the jacket itself has more ruffles, as well as a black inlining, which I guess makes this more secure. I think with this, we have another Lumi-like situation, where the black lining actually connects through the front, which kind of holds it to her body. On the ruffle, we have more little diamond shapes, which you can count if you want to. Turning off the ruffle, we have little side parts, as well as the end of her jacket, which has a lovely little gradient. I think the end of the jacket has a very lovely pattern. I'm not quite sure what these flowers are. I first thought they were sword acaris, which we collect for her, or crocuses, but that isn't quite right. If you figure out what kind of flowers these are, kindly leave them down below. Now the top of these have more lacy patterns with more bows, as well as more golden stripes. The jacket ends with little zigzag patterns which matches up with the lining of the jacket itself. The inside of the lower jacket has similar diamond shapes as we saw earlier in the sleeve. Completely removing the back part of the jacket, you can see where exactly the dress is cut off. Now, I don't really get why this was done, and I also don't really get the jacket personally. I get the appeal, back shots, okay. For a mentally rich girl, you would assume she could afford the entire outfit, but it kind of makes her look like she was only able to afford the scraps, and I really don't mean this in a mean way, but it is a bit much. She also has another detail which I literally cannot show on YouTube. I might make a post on my Discord where I show it, but the part really is indecent, and I can't believe this actually made it into the game. Little spoiler, it has to do with her bloomers. Giving her hair and body back, we'll move further down. Moving on to her legs, we do have her stockings and over-the-knee boots. The stockings themselves are more of a pinkish shade with more of this little lacy trim, as well as a magenta band holding them up. They do have this little end part, but they don't have any zipper-like features otherwise. The front of them do have something that could be a zipper, but then again, the actual zipper teeth are missing. Overall, the boots have a very subtle diamond-like pattern, which you can see if you look very closely. Moving on to the shoes, we do have the part where she's decked out the most. We do have number 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19. And while we're on the topic of that, let me show you why I don't count her little diamond patterns on the jacket to the eventual diamond counter. As you can see, compared to the pattern, these things are actually 3D. And in addition to that, they aren't just drawn on, but are actually separated parts. If you look at this, I can select every single try separately. To visualize this better, let me go ahead and select every single try of this. Now you have to imagine that this diamond, all of these little ones, as well as the ones at the top of her, are made up of all of these little tries, and that's kind of why I'm not counting the patterns. Moving on though, the shoes are lined with more little bows and are quite simple until you see the giant ass gem she has as a heel. I get that you're rich, girly, but god damn. Ignoring the gems for now, she does have big bows at the back again, as well as this triangle we've seen earlier on her glove with probably Mentelli written on it. Now, if you want, you can ignore these, but I'm going to add these big gem stiletto heels to the counter. And on the underside, we do have the gem pattern again, as well as probably the Mentelli family written on it. Moving back to her face, I'm going to show you something that was kind of requested of me, and that is how Wuwa does his expressions. As you can see to the side here, she has this whole list of things, featuring words like cheerful and anger, and that is exactly how they do them. Taking this expression for example, which is just called blink happy, and moving the value up, you can see that she is smiling. As well as with stare, she kind of looks annoyed. With wink, she's winking with one eye, and so on. This is kind of how Wuwa does its emotion, and I do my renders. I can fairly pick and choose between different vowels, as well as different ways to move her pupils. And that was it for the dissection of Carlotta. Now again, her design is very dripped out, having designs of diamonds and actual gems, as well as big-ass stiletto gems as a part of her design. I do think she's giving very much what she's supposed to be, and that is Mentelli rich girl, but I do wish they wouldn't have given her such a big back window or cut off her dress. At the end of the day, the tacit mark only damages what is on top of it. But regardless, I found other parts of her designs like the flowers and bows really cute. I hope you enjoyed and have a nice day. Bye bye.